Hello, and thank you for joining us for this RACC session, Paying for College, Financial Aid 101, on behalf of the Regional Admission Counselors of California. We thank you so much for tuning in to this session. My name is Sarah. I am the Counselor Relations Chair on the RACC Executive Board. I'm also an admissions officer for a university outside of the state of California, and I'm joined by my colleague.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eva, and I am the membership chair for RACC, and I as well work for an out-of-state institution.
So today we're going to be focusing on paying for college, helping you understand a very high level perspective of what it looks like when you are going through and researching universities and colleges and identifying all the different financial elements and making a smart financial investment. That is a big part of the college search process. And making a financial investment for your future is a big part of the process as well. And that's something that we hope for families and parents and anyone who's supporting students through this process, that you bring students into the process. This is a great teachable opportunity and a teachable moment for them. So what we're going to cover today, here is the overview: determining financial need, types of aid, applying for financial aid, cost comparisons, WUI, the Western Undergraduate Exchange, especially since we are an organization based in California, supporting California residents. We recognize that those tuning in may be from other parts of the country. You can see on the bottom of this page, regionaladmissions.com, just a plug for our website. We have a lot of great resources, other presentations, and then of course on our YouTube channel, we're consistently updating with new and updated information and videos from all of our members and partners and so forth. So this is what we're going to cover today. And first, we're going to start with understanding cost of attendance. So oftentimes this is what people refer to as the sticker price, or what it costs to attend a college or university. This is the number and the breakdown that you're going to see when you're looking online on a college's financial aid and scholarship website, when you're looking at a college or university's brochure. So the way to understand this is really in two parts. We like to call them direct expenses and indirect expenses. Direct costs or direct expenses are going to be paid directly to the institution. So these are things like tuition and fees, room and board, potentially books and supplies. These are things that oftentimes have a set cost, right? So you can't negotiate tuition, for example, or fees or room and board. These are determined and set by each individual institution. Then you have what's called indirect costs. These are expenses that are important to be aware of because they will impact the overall cost of attendance, but it's really more person to person budget. So things like transportation. How far away are you planning on traveling from your home state to college during, all 4 years? Do you plan to have a car on campus? Do they have a great bus system and bus transportation? How much do airplane tickets cost and so forth, getting to and from for holiday breaks and so forth? So transportation is one of those that really is a person-to-person expense. Other things like your personal budget. So I always like to say to my students, how much do you like to online shop? How much do you like to dine out? What's your Starbucks intake? All the different ways that students might need to find a or need to develop a personal budget, and for miscellaneous expenses, living expenses, groceries, and things like that while they're in school. So those are things that certainly do add up, but they're not set by the institution. So these two things, the direct costs and the indirect costs, together make up the cost of attendance. And we use this cost of attendance to assess what is going to be the difference in cost per university or college, depending on what types of aid you're eligible for. And we're going to talk about types of aid. But first, the way that aid is determined is through FAFSA. So this is the free application for federal student aid. Eva will go through a little bit more of that in depth. But in order to identify what types of aid you might be eligible for, it's important to understand the expected family contribution. So this is determined by the federal government through the free application for federal student aid. This lets students know what they're eligible for in terms of need-based aid. So this expected family contribution relates to need-based aid, not merit-based aid, which is scholarships or grants, things that you might be eligible for, but that's based off student talents, so to speak. So when we look at parent contribution plus student contribution, that equals the expected family contribution. And when we use the cost of attendance and family contribution together, that's how we determine financial needs. So you're going to take that cost of attendance and subtract that expected family contribution. And there's some really great tools out there that is determined net price calculators are on all US institution websites for you to go and kind of get an idea of what that EFC might look like. But once students file FAFSA, that will identify the types of aid that you're eligible for. So there's several different types. There's free money, earned money, and borrowed money. So the free money, there's two types. There's merit-based aid free money and there's need-based aid free money. So merit-based aid free money is what we call scholarships. So that is what students you have total control over. You can go and recognize what certain talents you have, academic experiences, and researching through colleges and universities. That's where a lot of the big scholarships do come from, through outside organizations such as religious organizations, websites, your parent companies or organizations. We highly recommend that you go to your high school counselors and your schools to identify, is there any scholarships that are available locally that my school offers, that my school district offers? So scholarships is really almost a part-time job for those seniors. So once you're a senior in high school and you start applying for scholarships, you really have to do so readily and you have to be very diligent about that. There are a lot of big websites and looking for niche types of scholarships. I would encourage you to think about what is your profile as a student. So if you are interested in maths or engineering or business programs, if you love art or music, if you have any health challenges, if there's anything in your life that you're really passionate about and that you're involved with, check with those organizations or check with local organizations that relate to those subject areas and see what might be available in terms of scholarship opportunities. And again, this is free money, so this doesn't have to be repaid. The other type of free money is grants. So these come in all different shapes and forms, but these are based off of financial needs. So the two types of grants that we're going to talk about today come through FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, as I mentioned. These don't have to be repaid, which is great, but this is also determined not by merit like scholarships, but by financial needs. So things like the Pell Grant, the SEOG grant, these are all determined by the federal or state governments to determine what you're eligible for in terms of financial need in grant money. Other types of money would be in the form of work study. So this is again need-based, a need-based financial aid support. So for students who are looking to have a job on campus, you don't necessarily need to qualify for work study. Having a work study job and having a job is very similar. The funding sources are what's different. And some jobs on college campuses might be geared specifically towards work study students versus traditional students who don't qualify for work study. But again, you still need to apply for the job. You still have to earn the money. The money is not given to you up front, but it is determined by FAFSA for work study jobs. And then the next part is borrowed money. And I think for me as a first generation student, so the first in my family to go to college, taking out loans was a really great way for me to receive an education. I didn't have very many options outside of borrowing money in order to fund my education. I had some great scholarships and things like that. So I think there's always a level of fear when it comes to borrowing money and that student loan debt, as we hear so very much. And that is a very significant challenge in the United States specifically. But it is important that if you do factor in loans, and if that is part of your process as well, being smart about the loans that you borrow is really critical here, and making sure that it's an investment that you're willing to make into your future, as was I. That's what I needed to do in order to get an education. These loans do need to be repaid. By filing FAFSA, your EFC will determine what types of loans you're eligible for. So there are various types of loans. The ones that come through the federal government are often our student loans. They are often at a lower interest rate. So things like the direct subsidized loan, this is called the Ford Direct Loan Program. So the subsidized loans in my category are the best types of loans because these are for undergraduate students. The interest while you're in school is paid by the Department of Education. So you don't have to worry about that interest accruing over time and then having to repay it back. There are limitations on how much money you can borrow each year. So it progresses from freshman to senior year. The funds do get larger from freshman to senior year. And you have the option up to that amount to borrow. You don't have to take the amount that is offered to you. You can certainly take less if you need less. Direct unsubsidized loans are very similar to the subsidized loan in the context of the interest rates are much lower for students. There are certain limitations in terms of the dollar amount that is eligible, but for those unsubsidized loans, the interest is not paid over the 4 years. So that interest does accrue, and students are responsible for paying that interest back. So that is something to note. The other and third loan option is the Parent Plus loan, or the Federal Direct Plus loan. So this is a loan that is in the parent or legal guardian's name. It is something that they have to qualify for based off credit. So it is determined by credit worthiness, as I mentioned. The borrower is responsible for all the interest, so there is no subsidized interest as well, or covered interest. And oftentimes these Parent Plus loans do come at a higher interest rate than the direct loan or the subsidized or unsubsidized direct loan. So that is something to factor in. Oftentimes on financial aid packages, you'll see a wide variety of different loan categories. And it's important that if you do have some concerns, or if you are confused, contact the financial aid office of that university and have them walk you through and clarify. Not every financial aid package, as we like to call it, will look identical. It will often have very similar information. The FAFSA, what you qualify for via FAFSA, will not change at each institution. What changes is the cost of attendance for each of those institutions, and then any other additional types of aid, such as scholarships or additional university grants and so forth, that they are eligible to provide.
So the website that you're going to want to go to is www.fafsa.gov. It is always the .gov. Don't go to any other websites like a .org or .com. The official one is .gov, and it is a free application. We put that in capital letters because we want you to know that it is free. You are not paying to apply for federal student aid. This will open up on October 1st every year. You can send us up to 10 schools. And once all 10 schools get your aid, if you're applying to 11 schools, for example, once they get your application, then what you'll do is you will call one of the schools and confirm that they have it. And then you will remove that school so that you can add in that 11th school to then get your FAFSA sent to them. For any non-citizens, when it asks for your social security number, you will use all zeros. And then schools can send their responses to you via mail or email. So just be sure you're checking both your mailbox and also your email. So the FAFSA has multiple sections. It'll have the student demographics, your school selections, the dependency status, parent demographics, financial information, and then you will sign and submit it. So you'll definitely want to be sure that you have your parents or legal guardian sitting down and doing this with you, as it can be a little bit of a long process. And you want as much help as you can get with this. So next, the needed information for the FAFSA will be student and the parent will need to will need a federal student ID. So that's the FSA ID. It cannot be the same email address, and you will go to fsaid.ed.gov, and you'll have to have your social security number, your driver's license, and then you will need help to get your family income in the W-2. All male students, you need to be aware that you must register for selective services. And then the tax information that's used for FAFSA is your filings from the previous year. So just be sure to have that on hand when you are going to fill out the FAFSA. Once you complete the FAFSA and you sign with the FSA ID, you'll list your colleges, and once FAFSA is processed, you will receive an email with your student aid report. The colleges will then receive all of this information, and they will get to determine how much aid they can give you based off what the federal government determined your family EFC was. The colleges will then communicate with you if there are missing documents to submit. So you really need to keep track of checking your email as well as checking your mailbox at your house, because sometimes the colleges will send it via snail mail. So just be sure to always stay on top of your college applications and FAFSA. All of this stuff can come in various forms. So once you find out if you have missing documents, you will need to submit those to the university, and the university's financial aid office can let you know how to submit those to them. And then the colleges, once we have all of your information and your FAFSA package is complete, then we will email out or mail out your award packages. And so those will typically be mailed out in the spring of your senior year of high school. So the FAFSA versus the CSS Profile. So the FAFSA provides the federal loans, grants, and other types of federal assistance, while the CSS Profile is an application where the universities will gauge how much non-federal financial aid you need. So not all universities use CSS. So if you're applying to a school and they don't require that, that's okay. This is more for need aware versus need blind. So a lot of universities that are need aware, meaning they're going to fulfill the gap in which you cannot afford, will most likely be using the CSS profile because they'll want to be meeting that full need. So all universities will accept the FAFSA, but not every university will be asking you for the CSS profile. So the cost comparison between various universities. So you'll see the UCs and the Cal States up top, and then out-of-state universities and private colleges at the bottom. So the thing to keep in mind that Sarah had mentioned earlier, these are just sticker prices. The total cost of attendance starts to go down once you get loans, grants, scholarships. Once that's all added in, then the cost will start to come down. So out of state can be affordable a lot of times, and in state, again, the cost goes down once you start to get scholarships from our in state institutions as well. So, again, don't let the sticker price of a university scare you. Still apply and see how much aid you get from both the federal government and from a university. The cost comparison, Sarah had mentioned earlier, every US institution will have the net price calculator on their website. So you can go and gauge and get a ballpark number of what your total cost of attendance might be. And again, the sticker price minus the gift aid will be your net price. And so that's what it's going to gauge for you. Lastly, there's a tuition discount program called the Western Undergraduate Exchange. If you go to wiche.edu, you can get information as to which schools participate in this. As you can see on the map, it's from North and South Dakota and it goes west. And a WUI participant pays the regular in-state tuition plus 50% of that amount. And so not all schools in each of these states participate in WUI. And so even if the institution is a public institution, that does not mean that they're necessarily participating. And with WUI, every single school has a different requirement as to who can receive WUI. So if a school offers it, it does not mean that it's going to be the same offering as another WUI institution. So be sure to ask each institution what the requirements are for you to receive the WUI tuition discount. If a school does not offer WUI, there are oftentimes still non-resident scholarships, and some of them even do California-specific scholarships. So be sure to ask any out-of-state institution that you're applying for what sort of out-of-state scholarships that they have, and see how you can apply for those. And also keep in mind that sometimes with non-resident and the private cost of an out of California school can sometimes be cheaper than an in-state just because the cost of living is oftentimes cheaper outside of California.
This concludes our presentation on Financial Aid 101. We thank you so much for tuning in. We hope this information was helpful in your college search process. We encourage you to also check out our YouTube channel for more content, as well as our website, www.regionaladmissions.com, in order to see all contact information for our member institutions, to find more information on our upcoming events as well. We wish you the best of luck in your college search process.